Welcome to the Cincy Postcast. It's your boy, the Chief. And before we get things started, I want to talk to you for a second about Streetside Brewery. You got a second for this? Streetside Brewery is your neighborhood brewery in the delightfully charming neighborhood of Columbia, Tusculum. In a town with no shortage of great craft brewing options, Streetside stands above all the rest. And honestly, I'd probably say that even if they weren't paying for this ad. That's how good they are. Their beer selection is second to none, and whatever kind of beer you like, Streetside has you covered. Plus, there's always events going on at their tap room. Coming up this week on Thursday, September 5th, it's Streetside Oktoberfest. They'll be doing Stein pours of their Rainy Day Clubhouse Fest beer, along with live German music to drink along to. If you're like me and consider Oktoberfest beers to be the superior brewing style, you're not going to want to miss this. It's an event guaranteed to make your West Side friends jealous that they went to the Harvest Home Parade instead. And if you do go, be sure to mention the Cincy Postcast to your bartender to get $1 off your pints. It'll help them know they made a good choice when deciding to sponsor this otherwise mediocre content. Streetside Brewery. Beer so good, you'll probably want to buy a t-shirt too. Oh, and on the Cincy Postcast today, we've got a special Labor Day episode to keep you company on your day off work. FC Cincinnati breaks out of its slump with a 4-1 thrashing of Montreal. Luca Orellano shows off more range than a Topgolf with yet another long goal. Kevin Kelsey returns to the score sheet, and Sergio Santos suddenly cannot miss. What did we take away from the match? What are the vibes like with this team? We'll break it all down. The national team releases its roster for the international window, and no Miles Robinson, no Weston McKennie, and still no manager? What's going on with that? We finish up with a little in the 11 out of the 18, add it all up, and that's your postcast. Here's Jim Trace. You ready? Let's jam. Oh, and joining me to talk about all of that and more, I'm joined by just Grayson. Grayson, it's another unhinged episode without Kevin to supervise us. How are we feeling about that?
I'm feeling good. I watched Rebel Moon Part 2, and I'm ready to dissect it over the next hour and a half in detail.
In detail. That was what my day was today. If that game had turned out differently last night. I had my day set aside. My wife really wanted to go to the art museum today. I was prepared to tell her, nope, sorry, you can go by yourself. I have to sit and watch a true piece of art in the comfort of my own home, and that is Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon Part 2. You could join me, but I just don't know that I'd be able to catch you up on Rebel Moon Part 1 in time for you to properly enjoy this film.
Yeah, I mean, it would be really hard to describe Rebel Moon Part 1 to somebody. It's just there's too much complexity.
There are certain things in life that I have to imagine are just very difficult to get into because they suffer under the weight of everything that has come before. Like, I don't know who the person is now who's like...
Right, Rebel Moon did not just fall out of a coconut tree.
No. I mean, there's clear backstory to watch there. I'm always endlessly fascinated by the people who decide, you know what, I'm going to start watching the Marvel movies now. Or, like, I'm going to get really into Star Wars now. And it's like, I don't know that I would be willing to make that time commitment if I already didn't have previous backstory and previous involvement in all of this.
I think that it is... I can't imagine that somebody would getting into, like, the Star Wars movies, like, today, right? Or even the Marvel movies, they're not going to have they're going to have an entirely different experience of them that everybody else had who watched them, like, you know, as they came out or as a kid, like we were when some of it was out, but not all the stuff that has gone, and the culture was different because it's like in the way that, like, astrology is real,
right? In that it's
where, like, the exact right, and that the exact circumstances and like shape of the moon at the time you were born shapes like all of the experiences that happen to you over the course of your life, because you're experiencing like each moment at a specific age that nobody else has in that moment, and over time you become a perfect Leo. I imagine watching Star Wars in the context of when you watch it affects how you experience it, and what Star Wars is your favorite,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera.
Like what house is Jupiter in, and is Mercury in retrograde when you choose to watch this? That will determine the experience that you have.
Right.
You ever met anyone that's really...
Or if you're like tired when you watch a movie.
Just fall asleep. You ever met anyone who's really into astrology? Like, I'm always fascinated by people that are still into astrology.
I think lots of people are into astrology.
I don't know.
I've met several people who are into astrology.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know, I'll say this. I would totally buy if like the age you are when you start to form memories. I would totally buy that it affects your personality, whether that is happening to you in like the summer or winter, for example.
Just based on like alignment of where the moon is.
When you were born.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. There was this weird... So I went to college down in New Orleans. I think we talked about this before on the podcast. And like they're very into shit like that down there. So like you could go and you could wander around. And there's people doing like tarot card readings and doing, astrology readings. And I was always fascinated by it. But then like you would occasionally run into someone who was like, "Oh no, I went and did that," and that was life changing for me. I was like, "Oh, it seems like it'd be fun, but I don't know that I would really ever ascribe a ton of meaning to it." But then, like, it would be wild if you did it and something, like, major happened immediately afterwards. That would probably shape how I thought for a really long time.
I once gave a woman $20 in Greenwich Village to read my palm. I was coming out of the bar Phoebe's, which is a bar that shows Bengals games in New York City. And I was kind of, well, I would say tired.
Yeah.
So I don't really remember what I don't really remember the experience that much.
Like, I'm always fascinated by the person who gets like a tarot card reading or has their palm read the day before a major like earth-shattering event or like a huge moment in history. Like imagine you're getting the future told to you like the day before the Kennedy assassination or the day before 9/11, and you were the last person that walked into the tarot card reader or the fortune teller or whatever, and then the next hours later this thing happens. Like, where the hell were you on that? I think that would have been good information to get.
Didn't some people's favorite president of all time run a non-insignificant part of their decision through like their fortune teller?
I mean, his wife, I think, did.
Yeah. So, I mean, depending on, I guess depending on your point of view, you might think that leads to good outcomes or not so good outcomes.
A certain point of view? Star Wars fun. Yeah. So it's Labor Day weekend. I love releasing episodes on holidays just because I can watch our download numbers tank in real time as no one actually listens because no one's working. Grayson, we're taping a little early tonight. Is this because you are planning on going out to watch the fireworks later on this evening?
I am not going out to watch the fireworks, but I am going to my neighbor's rooftop to watch the fireworks.
Bougie. So you're not one of the throw the blanket down on the riverbank and show up early?
So I certainly not. People in this town love their fireworks.
They really do.
Like, you cannot get enough of their fireworks. I did hear that when they started fencing off the area, the first year was kind of a shit show.
Yeah.
And that when the fireworks were over, people just knocked the fence down to leave.
So you can't keep a Cincinnatian contained when it comes to fireworks and displays of illumination in the sky.
You can keep it contained if based on the promise of fireworks.
But like once that's gone.
But when the fireworks are over, they're jazzed up.
Yeah.
You know?
You've heard that WEBN soundtrack, like you're ready to go.
They gotta go home and have a hootie.
Yeah. The one thing I always found fun about the WEBN fireworks is I don't know if you
need to go to long necks.
Well, obviously. Do you recall the controversy over the televising the fireworks? There was a number of years where there were complaints about how poorly the television coverage of the fireworks was going on. I think it was like
Did they show the fireworks?
Oh, they show the fireworks every year on TV. It's a big deal.
Yes.
Like, people get really excited about watching fireworks on TV, which I just do not understand at all. Like, fireworks are fun in person. They're loud, they're bright, they're interesting. Fireworks on television, it's like a screensaver, except worse. And it's being filmed by local television, so it's not like in super high def with all the latest like Hollywood technology or anything like that. But like people got like really mad. Like Facebook comments, calls, letters to the editor about how bad 1 year of fireworks coverage is. And I was shocked, like, people care that much? I don't get it.
What would be bad about the coverage?
Well, apparently they were missing shots, or it wasn't framed right, or they were letting the anchors talk too much, or I have no idea.
So if you're not showing the fireworks, I understand that complaint. Like if you're cutting away from the fireworks for some reason, I understand that complaint. Why is your sound on?
I have no idea. I don't understand.
Isn't the thing where you listen to WEBN?
Yeah, I don't know if they had the rights to play the WEBN music with the fireworks. I think that might have been part
Well, then play it on your radio.
Right. It's also the same soundtrack every year. You could legitimately just listen to last year's fireworks, and it would be the same. It would be the same music playing every year. There's some mandatory Metallica in there. There's some Pink Floyd.
Play your own music.
Yeah, or do an edible and listen to whatever, and it's fantastic. Well, I didn't think about that. This will be the first year people can be legally stoned at the fireworks. Now, I know that's never been a problem for people in the past, based on, just some personal observations of one of the five senses when down there. I don't know. I've been before. I used to go to Mount Adams to watch them. I'm not a crowd person, especially not like that kind of crowd in terms of size, and then not so much the crowd, but also departing. Like I like to leave when I'm done with something, and it's not conducive to that. I did have this thought though. So we are rapidly approaching the 250th anniversary of the founding of the city of Cincinnati. I think that'll happen sometime in the next decade. You got to do a bigger fireworks display than Labor Day for that, right? Like, it's got to be double at least.
When was Cincinnati founded?
I think like 1770 something, 1772, 1774.
So you're saying this could be like the 250? 1788.
1788. So we're getting up there. We're getting close.
Well, it'd be like 2038 would be the 250th.
So it's like it's going to happen in the next decade. Like in the next 15 years, we're going to have that happen. That's got to be like the fireworks display to end all fireworks displays, right? Assuming we're all still here.
I don't know. Honestly, it doesn't really do anything for me.
No? Not a big fan of historical milestones?
Not really, I guess.
We got 250 for America coming up in 2 years. That's fun.
Yeah, it'll have been a good run.
You planning on us going somewhere here?
We'll see. We've kind of got a ship of Theseus situation with with America potentially.
Yeah, it's still floating, but what exactly is floating? Anyway, so about last night, Montreal Impact, FC Cincinnati. FC Cincinnati on a 4-match losing streak, the very definition of a can't-lose game, and by damn, FC Cincinnati didn't lose the game. 4-1, the FC turns out the victors in this. Before we get into the lineups, the recap of the game, the vibes, Grayson, Going into this, I was a little pessimistic. I know you were a little pessimistic when we recorded the podcast. Match day itself, did any feeling change, or were you still thinking like this team was probably in trouble?
I was looking forward to the match because it's been a while since I've gone to an MLS match, right? I wasn't too worried about. I was more worried about whether Ohio State was going to hit the over in the afternoon, but I said on Wednesday, and I think I held the same idea up until the game started, that I just wanted to. I didn't really care about the result, or I wasn't like worried about the result. I cared about the result later,
after the fact,
after it happened, or as it was really more likely as it was happening. But I wanted to see a few things. I wanted to see, maybe some semblance, even without Lucho and Yedlin, some semblance of like what feels like a sustainable lineup moving forward. And then seeing how the team could come up with ways to hold the ball, generate chances, and be dangerous without Acosta.
Yeah, it was. It's interesting you mentioned that. Ohio State, did they end up hitting the over?
They did. They got a pick six later.
There is nothing better, incidentally, than first weekend college football betting when it's all these teams, for the most part, playing tune-up games. And betting the over, you are just an absolute sicko to be chasing that on a game, where it usually comes down to, do they let their foot off the gas, or do they try to run the score up on some team they're paying $50,000 to come and play? Gambling was mixed results this weekend. That's good. Glad for Ohio State. That makes that always good. Always good to calm the nerves of the fan base hitting the over in that first game. Tells everyone you really care and really trying. Also, only other takeaway from college football, which I'll note here, is God bless Dabo Swinney for being the last person on the planet to realize that the transfer portal exists. I don't think he knows about it still, and the results are just hilarious. And it's.
I was thinking about that, and like Saban did the respectable thing.
He got out. He was like, "I can't deal with this anymore. Right. I'm leaving."
But I know that a lot of these guys are like state employees, so they're not necessarily subject to the same like expectations. There's still that illusion, I guess, that it's not like a business.
Right.
So someone like Dabo Swinney could be like, "We've always built our program on the name, image, and likeness of Jesus Christ." Right. But if these were like businesses, and you were like a CEO of a business, and it was the college football was individual businesses competing, and then some CEOs were just refusing to like, work on NIL, or refusing to be real active in the transfer portal. You would have to fire them. You would think. Like it would be incompetent. It would be rank incompetence. No, it would be like, as far as like it's like what you're supposed to do. I mean, you could complain about the ethics of it all you want, or complain about the impact it's having on college football, and I think I would probably agree with a lot of the observations. But you have to play the same way that your competitors are playing, right? And if you're choosing not to engage in things and demonstrably hurting your ability to stay competitive, maybe this isn't the job for you. No, it's go coach at Brown, or go back to D2. They even have to deal with it down there, though. I mean, that's obvious. No, but it would be like if you were an MLS GM and you're like, you know what, I really believe in the super draft, and they take the super draft away, and it's like, well, then I'm just not doing players anymore because we're a draft development
a draft development team. I guess that would be more relevant to the NWSL, considering they just got rid of the draft, which is, good for them.
Well,
that's
what if you thought that? What if you believed in like full pay equity, right? And you're just like, we're not going to sign designated players because we're going to pay all the players the same. We think it's good for workplace culture.
We have a designated
we
team.
think it's fair. We think it's fair and equitable to do it this way. So we're just not going to sign designated players. Yeah, you also need to be a GM anymore.
You just lose. That would be actually really funny if someone came in and they were like, I am a strict Stalinist, Marxist, Leninist, and we are going to have, everyone is going to split the wages equally. We are going to pay to the salary cap. Everybody makes the exact same amount of money. I mean, as an experiment, I would love to watch it, and I would love to play that team every week.
Right.
So yeah, Clemson losing continues to be hilarious. Anyway, that was a sidetrack here. This match, the FC posts the lineup back in the sword formation, according to the match graphic that FC Cincinnati tweets out. But you look at it, and it really, I mean, maybe the admin was just reusing the old graphic and just changing the names under it. But the lineup comes out: Kevin Kelsey and Nico Gioacchini up top. Yuya Kubo seems to be playing the Lucho Acosta role in the midfield. You've got your wing backs of Alvis Powell and Luca Orellano. Your two midfielders.
Notably, Powell on the right, Orellano on the left.
Back on the left. Pavel Buca and Wobodo in the midfield. Your back line is Cheeto Awazim, Miles Robinson and Ian Murphy, Roman Celentano in goal. They said this was the sword formation, but when you watched how it played and you just looked at the names, this was the two-striker formation. This was the traditional two up top with an attacking mid ahead of two box-to-box midfielders, the wing-backs out on the side, and Orellano back playing on the left-hand side, no longer inverted as a winger. At first glance, you think to yourself, they're doing it again. But really, this was a lineup that, when you gave it some thought, this is players. And Noonan had said earlier in this week, and I was trying to find the quote as you were talking. Noonan had said over this week that, okay, here I found it, that he'd said in the build-up to this game, we are struggling to communicate in the right ways on the field and help each other out. I'm at fault at times for maybe putting too many guys out of position at moments to try and maybe get our best performers, or maybe we think is our best 11, to help us go win a game. That takes you out of rhythm at times, and players being consistent is one spot, so that's factored into it. And it's interesting that they come back out with this lineup, and for the most part, everybody is in the position that they would have started the year in. You've got Luca back out left. You have a traditional right wing back, three center backs at the back. Yedlin obviously not available on a card suspension. Lucho not available on a card suspension. Two midfielders. Kubo is the closest approximation you have to an attacking mid. It's a role he's played before when Lucho is out. And you have two strikers up top in position as strikers. Pat putting his money where his mouth is a little bit here.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I don't remember if I said it on Twitter or in the Discord, but they could, if it makes them feel better to put the sword formation in the graphic, I'm happy for them to do that. But what does matter is how it plays, and then two, I was really happy to see with those three attackers, if, as you kind of did, Chief, if you move Nico to forward next to Kelsey, that's a totally plausible starting attacking trio.
Yeah.
In a two striker formation, given the personnel that they had available. It's probably the three that I would have started, and the way you described it. But then the other big thing to me was, with the traditional wingbacks on their not playing inverted and having them able to provide width with Kevin Kelsey starting the game.
Yeah. Yeah, it's never made...
Which is something we had complained about in prior games of having your inverted wingers or wingbacks at the same time that Kelsey's on the field.
Yeah, it never made sense to me that you bring in Kelsey to offer an opportunity for someone to be a target in the box, and then you invert your wingers to where they're going to want to start cutting inside versus providing service. This lineup made a lot of sense in terms of the personnel they had available. Like I said, Lucho and Yedlin obviously on card suspensions. We'll talk about card suspensions later on as we go on in this episode, I'm sure. But this is probably the optimal starting 11 you can play. And for the most part, they played in position. You had Kubo, who was playing that attacking mid role, but playing a lot more as a traditional attacking mid than what you would see when Lucho is on the field. Because Lucho, he's an attacking mid, but he does so much more than a midfielder does usually in terms of getting involved into the attack himself and getting into the 18. Kubo, for the most part, was content to stay at the top of the 18-yard box and try and look for opportunities elsewhere. Yeah, so they come out in this, and for the majority of the early part of this game, they dominate possession. When I looked up several times up to the board, the possession stats were in close to the 55 to 60% range. They finish up in the match with 56%. In the first half, it was much closer to 80%. There was a clear effort, I thought, to maintain possession, keep possession, and attempt to try and pick their way through a Montreal defense that wasn't really interested in high pressing, that sat in a very, very compact three-line setup for the most part. And they seemed in control of the match for long stretches, but it is worth pointing out, and we're going to be positive, I think, overall on this result. It is worth pointing out, I think, that at least to my eye watching this match, without Lucho on the field, this team moves at least a step slower. And what I mean by that is that the ball tends to get stuck a lot in the opposing final third. It doesn't move quickly. There's a lot of side-to-side passing and not a lot of efforts to pass and break lines with passes or get runs in. There are runs that are being made that get missed, I think, without Lucho on the field. And so at times, even though they're in control of the match, it can feel like a tough watch, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right. But, I mean, at least they did, dominate the ball when the game was still close.
Yeah.
They did get off 16 shots. Not a lot of XG from those shots, but I don't care very much about that. But you're looking at 16 shots, 6 on target, 2 big chances, 1 big chance missed. They were consistently dangerous on set pieces, I thought.
Were they? Okay, so they were dangerous.
Yeah,
they were dangerous on set pieces in terms of free kicks. I thought they did very well on their free kicks. This team is awful at corner kicks. Well, I don't understand it.
So the goalie had to make a fingertip save of 1 free kick that Luca took. Another free kick he hit off the crossbar, and I think it was going in. I think the goalie might have deflected it just enough to hit it on the crossbar as well on that one. Obviously, they scored twice off of free kicks, and we'll talk about how those transpired. He does send some of those corners like really long, but he did have moments where he did have several corners though where he got them into the mix of people, and somebody got a head on it, or somebody at least got a touch on it, and did they generate, really dangerous, shots on target? Did they generate any goals? No, but part of that is just where a guy happens to be when he finds the ball, the timing of the kick versus the jump and all that. But at least especially earlier, it seemed like they were doing a better job of at least putting the ball into a part of the box where somebody could play it.
Yeah. The corner.
And actually, now that I remember, I think the one really good corner early was Kubo.
Yeah. I can't remember the last time this team scored directly off a corner. It feels like it's been ages since.
Miles scored one this year.
Really early on in the year, though.
Yeah, and it was a low corner against Chicago, I think.
Yeah. But it's been a long time since this team.
It feels like it.
Yeah. With all the tall players on this team that they had at least during the first part of the year, and they've lost some height on this team for sure. But I don't know. Going through some of the big things in this match. The first one I want to point out, 22nd minute of this match, Miles Robinson is given an absolutely phantom yellow card that I have watched the replay probably a dozen times now, and for the life of me, I still can't figure out what he does. I know what happens to the Montreal player. The Montreal player earns himself an Academy Award, a Golden Globe, and a BAFTA for the meal he makes of whatever Miles does to him. The referee looks at the play during the run, looks at it during the run of play, and then comes back at a stoppage to assess Miles a yellow card. MLS officiating is awful. This official was awful last night. Just objectively, it lost control of the game at multiple points. The reason I bring this up is that this yellow card will be Miles's 5th yellow, and he will be suspended now as a result for Hell is Real in 2 weeks. Noonan lost his mind at this card, and I think that if you look at the replay, apparently, I haven't seen this part, but he is yelling at the ref, asking what he did, and then asking the ref also if he knew that he's on 4 yellows. How can you give him that? So, I don't know. I'm sick of bitching about the refs, but by the same token, it happens far too often in this league. It's stupid, and if the refs are going to be this inconsistent about giving cards and what is a card and what isn't a card, and if cards are not reviewable by VAR, and I think they absolutely should be. I think that at the half that they should have the opportunity to look at yellow cards and then make a decision that if the referee's decision was incorrect, you can pull yellow cards off at the half and just make an announcement that the yellow card has been rescinded, whatever it is. But if you're going to do this and not have any mechanism to check it, they got to up the number of cards before you get a suspension, or cards have to drop off your resume faster in this league because the officiating sucks. And especially with cards, it just feels arbitrary what is and is not a yellow card in this league.
Yeah, I mean it was absurd. The card, and it's just he totally fell for the Montreal players, very delayed, grab my face, rolling around antics, and it made me a little worried, for the well-being of referee John Freeman. I think he may need like some kind of wellness check. I'm concerned about individuals like getting access to his banking information, given his susceptibility to being tricked.
Right.
And then on top of that,
that would be incidentally, that would be really funny if the result of some of these games was someone, please don't do this, this is for satire only, would be to suggest that a referee needs to be probated because he's incapable of making his own financial decisions or take care of himself.
It's certainly an open question based on how he conducted himself last night. I'm not sure he knew where he was.
No.
I think, he definitely shouldn't be running for a second term. He's and
he should have to take a cognitive test before his next performance, I think.
I do want him to say I do want him to read a clock.
Yeah.
I just want to see something. and to top it all off, he's like the accountant for the ref union.
Well, that makes that makes a lot of sense, actually.
He files their documents, and I'm like, I think now we got to worry about them.
You know what?
Like they might have to go into like a receivership.
What really does bother me about this is that we said this way, way back when the replacement referees were still reffing, and that you had people that cover this league, and there's only a few people that cover this league, and it was Jonathan Tannenwald from Philadelphia was one of the main instigators of this, who every bad decision a replacement ref made was a catastrophic sign of how this league is being ruined and how can they continue to do this, and it shows that the league isn't serious. And what we said, I think it was you were the one that said this, and it was like, okay, keep that same energy up and that same critical eye up when the pro referees come back. And we all knew it wouldn't. But like, if a replacement referee had made this call, people would have been howling. The national media would have had clips of this. It would have been zoomed in frame by frame like the fucking Zapruder film. They would have found fan angles to show that this hadn't happened. And I don't know. Do we have a patriotic duty as FC Cincinnati fans to have our cell phone cameras out and be filming some of these interactions as players run down the sidelines, to have alternate angles available should the team need to appeal a decision like this?
I mean, you might, because like as part of the appeal process, you do like submit any evidence that's available to you. So if people have cell phone cameras, of things,
if you were filming
cell phone videos,
if you were filming in the First Financial Club and you caught video of this interaction between Miles Robinson and this Montreal player, the DMs are open at the Post Cincy. We will make sure that this gets to the proper authorities at the club. So if you have this footage and you would like to be part of the process to free Miles and have Miles available for Hell Is Real, this is actually not a joke. Like, if you have footage that shows this, please send it to us.
So under the MLS send-off review procedure, the appeal has to be sent within 24 hours of the completion of the match. But within 48 hours, the club can submit documentation for the appeal.
Okay, so
including any and all evidence, e.g., video, photography, written statements, other supporting the appeal. So if anybody wants to like write a statement
about what they saw
and send it to Carter Chapley.
Yeah. Carter's DMs are open, and I'm sure he would appreciate all of this.
I actually don't know if they are, but yeah, I mean, if you got video, send it our way. We'll make sure somebody sees it. Yeah. And then, I was looking at Miles's history. He has his first straight red card of his career this year. And he's got about 25% of his career yellow cards.
Interesting, huh?
In 2023, he played 27 games for Atlanta United. 2 yellow cards, no double yellows, no reds. In 2022, he was injured, so he only played 9 games. But in 2021, 26 games for Atlanta United, 1 yellow card.
Yeah.
Like, Miles is historically not a player who picks up a ton of cards. And so for him to have so many this year and get suspended for a call like that, it
begs questions.
It absolutely raises questions
about how he's being officiated, how he's being called. His straight red he earned his straight red. I'm not going to quibble with that one, but the number of yellows that he's accumulated this year, a lot of soft yellows that Miles has been a victim of this year, and it has real consequences because he's going to miss this next match. We'll get back to the goal here in a second, but while we're on this topic, still in the first half, 40th minute, Ian Murphy also picks up a yellow card. This one was possibly... It's more deserved in that something actually happened, where I'm not convinced anything happened on the Miles Robinson card. But even still, it's another FC Cincinnati player that was on 4 yellows. Ian Murphy will also miss Hell Is Real. So... as a result of this, the way this match was officiated, we're going to be going in, and the FC is going to be going into this derby match against Columbus in 2 weeks, down 2 of its starting 3 center backs. How's that make you feel?
Makes me feel like if we need to fundraise to get Carl's PJ over to pick up Teenage Hadebe as soon as his match for Zimbabwe is over, I think that's something we could get behind. But we do need a little bit of notice on that, Carl.
Yeah.
You can't be asking us September 9th to do this.
No, if the GoFundMe needs to start, it needs to start now. And if we're gonna start the GoFundMe, let's do it stylish. Let's have the helicopter land at midfield as soon as the full-time whistle happens. He can just hop on the helicopter to the tarmac, PJ back to the United States. It is imperative that Teenage Hadebe makes it to TQL Stadium for this match. Good news, though, if you want some good news about this, is that I would imagine there's not a huge learning curve for Teenage back in MLS. These are teams he's played against. These are players he's seen. This is possibly the best case scenario for bringing an international player to MLS in terms of ready to get out there and go play.
Yeah, and hopefully he's had a couple of Zoom appointments with like Kenny Arena or whoever.
I mean, they can send him footage
to talk about. Yeah, right.
They can send him film of like what we do, what we're going to be expecting you to do. I assume they do that. I have no idea if they do or not.
I mean, it feels like once a guy's under contract type of thing, you could
make it happen.
That would be reasonable to do, right? So on the, I guess since we're on the ref, and I don't want to really talk about the ref all episode. There's 2 things I wanted to mention. One is this is 2 weeks in a row, and you know, you made the comment with Noonan asking if he knew that the player was on four yellows, and I think he also repeated that comment to the media after the game. This is 2 games in a row where we're having guys, like big players, face yellow card suspensions for, I don't know, referee took 1 Advil instead of 2, and he's got like a mild headache and he's a little irritable. Because you had last week, Yedlin, the captain, got a yellow card for trying to talk to the ref.
For dissent, yeah.
When, you know, you had that same ref get mobbed and grabbed by Miami players and nobody got anything.
Lucho get a yellow for falling.
Lucho got a yellow for falling, you know. Then this week, Miles, the yellow for nothing. I've watched the video of it many times as well, and I don't see anything. There might be a slight bump, but like nothing, you know, up in the face, nothing that seemed like it warranted even the ref's attention at all. And then Ian, I did see the foul. I did think Ian committed the foul. Out of context, I probably wouldn't complain about the yellow. But given the broader context and how everything else has been done, and given that that's one that you also see not given a lot, I can't help but feel a little sore about it.
There was worse contact that went uncarded in this game. There was absolutely worse.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I've seen people talk about was the penalty was originally called a penalty and called back.
Let's get to that in a second here.
Okay.
Because in the first half still, 36th minute, Kevin Kelsey puts the FC up 1-0 in something I've been asking a lot more for, and that's let's get some chaos goals, baby. Let's just rip the ball at the net and see what happens. And in this case, we got a little bit of fun here. Kevin Kelsey slots one past after I think there was an initial ball through into him. There was a deflection.
Orellano played the ball from wide into the box and found Kelsey.
Yes.
Which, again, like having him out wide there enables him to provide that service. And also, like, we don't have Lucho. We can't expect that we're just going to dribble through the entire defense. No. Let's put the ball in a dangerous spot.
Get it in there.
And see if we can just move it toward the goal, which is exactly how this goal was generated. And that's, I think, a viable... I know it's not the cleanest... I know the path from his foot to the back of the net wasn't the cleanest, most direct route it could have possibly taken.
Don't care.
But I don't care. I don't care. I mean, it's the same... It's the same process as if he just shoots it right into the net.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's the same opportunity that's generated. It's the same action from Kelsey, and
good power on the strike.
Getting the ball there and being able to take a shot from that position in the box is exactly the type of thing that is repeatable and you can I think rely on.
Not for nothing too. Great to see Kevin Kelsey get one in the back of the net. You just need to see one go in. Like, I know people have been down on Kevin Kelsey a little bit, and one of the things I watched out for in this game, because I was sitting a little bit higher up than I usually do by virtue of getting some different seats for this game. Kevin Kelsey does a lot when he's on the field. He moves without the ball really well, and oftentimes he's doing work where he's not found, where I think that someone with a little bit better vision on this team, maybe a Lucio Acosta vision, would find Kevin Kelsey a little more often. There were multiple times in this match where he, I mean, for lack of a better term, boxed out his defender and had his defender screened off and was asking for the ball. Like, play it to the outside, let me take the ball down, back this guy down to goal, and then there's all sorts of things you can do once the defense collapses on him. And he just wasn't being found there. He was putting in really, really good work on this. And it's interesting about Kevin Kelsey, too. There is, in the Discord, it was mentioned today, and I'm not going to give credit because I don't know if...
Well, I would put it firmly in rumor.
Right, rumor.
Rumor category.
But I hadn't seen this particular rumor before, but it makes quite a bit of sense.
I suspect that there is. I'll say this. I suspect there is truth to it.
So, but before we go,
the actual in and outs of it, I don't know. But go ahead.
Yeah. So, in the Discord, the rumor going around, and I would say this is it's a rumor that makes sense, is that Kelsey's minutes are being limited right now because there is something in his loan agreement or in the contract they have signed with Kevin Kelsey. Because the way this works, for those of you who get most of your soccer knowledge from listening to Grayson talk about, or at least MLS roster requirements for people who get their news from Grayson, is that when you have a loan like this, the loan is agreed to by the two teams, between Kelsey's team and FC Cincinnati. They loan Kevin Kelsey. There's a loan fee that's paid. And then there's an agreement between the clubs as to how much of his salary is covered by FC Cincinnati and how much of his salary is covered by his original team. And then there's also what they call the purchase option. The purchase option is agreed to ahead of time between the two clubs as well, or between the club and the player as well. So Kevin Kelsey has already reached personal terms with FC Cincinnati on what his contract would look like if the purchase option is agreed upon. And they've already reached terms with his club as to what the sale fee would be if the purchase option is agreed upon. So all this stuff is already done, which is why when you exercise the option on a player on a loan, there isn't a long negotiated process. It's triggered because all the work is done on the front end, which is part of the reason why it took this Kevin Kelsey loan so long to get done in the first place, because all these things had to be worked out ahead of time. This is all backstory for this idea, that there is in either his contract that they have signed with him, or in the agreement they have with his original club, his salary changes based on how many minutes he plays this season. And they need to keep his salary under a certain number, which is the max budget charge of about $650,000, in order for him to qualify as a U-22 player. For the U22 initiative, you can pay whatever that you want as a transfer fee on a player. It doesn't matter. It's kind of like a DP in that regard. But unlike a DP, you have to keep the actual number you're paying the player under the max salary budget charge in order to qualify for that U22 spot. So for FC Cincinnati, there is a large incentive in doing whatever is necessary to make sure that he fits in the U22 spot, because if he doesn't fit in the U22 spot, they really don't have a path forward with Kevin Kelsey to acquire him, because it would take a designated player spot to do that, and they don't have one right now.
And it's not just moving him from a U22 to a designated player would just move him from a U22 to a designated player. I mean, he'd have basically the same budget hit in either roster slot, but they would either have to be willing to go into next year with just Lucho and Kevin as their DPs, or be willing to sign a third DP and forego that $2 million GAM bonus that you get for only having two designated players. And Albright's already said that they're kind of
forced.
I mean, I'm paraphrasing and maybe not representing perfectly what he said, but he basically implied that they kind of need that GAM to pay the contracts for a lot of their sub designated players like
Cheeto,
Miazga, Obi, Cheeto, potentially Miles Robinson,
potentially teenage
Hadebi, DeAndre Yedlin. I mean, these are guys who are making large MLS salaries that are below the DP threshold that the extra $2 million in GAM would really help out with. Plus, depending on if you want to like buy down all of Luca's transfer fee next year, that's going to take a lot of GAM to do. And there's just so it would be extremely complicating for Kevin Kelsey to do something that makes him a designated player next year instead of a U22. But I'll say this: I think I feel pretty comfortable that there's something in one of the contracts relating to amount of minutes played. I don't know if it's like an automatic trigger of the $7 million purchase option. I don't know if it's I don't know if it's salary based, like you were suggesting.
There's something there though.
But I think there's something there. And it would explain why he was getting more inconsistent minutes through the middle part of the season. Maybe that's a point where you're just like, yeah, we're just going to manage minutes through here. And once we hit this point, we know that if he plays every minute the rest of the year, or most of the minutes the rest of the year, he's not going to hit that whatever the minutes threshold is. We don't really know what that number would be. Again, this is, I think, firmly in rumor bucket, but I also do personally suspect there to be some truth to it, but just take that all for what it's worth.
And I say that just to bring up the idea too, that like, I think Kevin Kelsey has played very well this year. I think that especially when you consider his age and his background, and the type of salary spot he's on, Kevin Kelsey has been a unicorn type find. And I think that there was something in the zeitgeist a little bit that like people are down on Kevin Kelsey. He can't get minutes. He's stuck on the bench. Why is that? This would be a real explanation as to why Kevin Kelsey hasn't been run out consistently as the starting striker for this team. That has absolutely nothing to do with whether or not the coaching staff is pleased with what he's doing, or that's any comment on his performance. And
it's also something that they would not exactly be at liberty to say.
No, not at all. In fact, saying I don't know how the MLSPA works, but in a lot of other sports, when you manipulate service time in this way, it can cause some legal ramifications, especially when it's bonus money or money in contract money.
I believe Fernando Adi filed a grievance against FC Cincinnati for essentially like minutes manipulation or something back in 2019, when they were basically sitting him, I think, to not have to pay him a bonus or something like that. I mean, I don't remember. I'd have to go back and check, but I recall there being something.
Which leads me
something like that.
Which leads me to believe that there is probably the rumor was salary. I think it probably has something to do with how much they're paying this year of his salary and how that plus the loan fee, because the loan fee is computed into his budget charge, I believe, along with the percentage of salary being paid. They've got to keep that under that $650,000 threshold in order to make sure that he's roster compliant as a U22. So I would think there's something there.
Adi filed a grievance with the union saying that FC Cincinnati intentionally prevented him from reaching certain bonuses in his contract by holding him out of games.
Well, he got held out of games because he sucked. So I hope that grievance went nowhere.
But I don't know how it was resolved. But he did give an interview to The Athletic in October of 2019. Oh, to our friend Laurel Failer.
Ah, look at that. How about that?
Oh, yeah. So, she was... I
forgot she was working for The Athletic back then.
Yeah, she's, been breaking news and for years. So
that's Kevin Kelsey.
Yeah.
Good for him to see one go in the back of the net. Love that for him. Once that first goal gets scored, I felt a lot better about this game because the longer it went without a goal, you start to worry that something stupid's going to happen and this team's going to end up having to chase something. Getting the first goal was big. I think it opened the game up a lot more in terms of what Montreal was doing. But they go to half up 1-0, and it's not far into the second half that we reach our next controversy point with the official. It's about, I want to say, the 51st or 52nd minute in this match that maybe even earlier than that, because there was a long VAR review of this. So I want to say it was maybe a little earlier, closer to the 48th, 47th minute. Say 47th minute, that Kevin Kelsey is pulled down in what appears to be the box from my vantage point, and a PK is awarded to the FC. It takes a comically large divot out of the TQL Stadium turf, which looked better this game, I thought. It certainly didn't look as bad as it has previously. There were still some chunks of it coming up, but it was a lot less noticeable than it has in the past. Kevin Kelsey taken down in the box. Penalty kick awarded to the FC. Interestingly, stepping up to take it would have been Luca Orellano, where we saw Yuya Kubo step up and take one of the worst penalties I've seen in a while. The last time Lucha was out and we were awarded a PK. But all for naught after an extensive video review. This thing went on for a while. You had the Bailey singing the Jeopardy theme multiple times over, waiting for this dipshit to go to the monitor. The announcement is made over the stadium PA that there was a foul, but the foul occurred outside of the box, which I guess by the letter of the law, I know that the way that the rules read is that the foul is placed at where the foul begins. So if you make contact with someone outside the box with like a nudge and then continue to foul them as they go into the box and they fall eventually in the 18, you frequently see this where they pull the spot back outside of the box in order to award the foul. But my question to you,
so the one correction there is if you start holding a player outside the box, but you continue to hold them in the box, that's a penalty kick.
My question to you, though, if you pull this out and you say, okay, foul occurred outside the box, was this a denial of a goal-scoring opportunity here? Because it sure fucking looked like it.
So I do think that he stopped. First of all, I think he stopped holding him outside the box. He kind of, theatrically lets go as he gets to the edge of the box. That's a common defender move, and sometimes I think it tricks refs even when they actually have continued holding the player inside the box. But I think he lets go of him outside the box, and I think it was fine. Although they put it back pretty far outside the box.
Which is helpful, actually.
Yeah. But as I know some people were asking for a denial of obvious goal-scoring opportunity, red card there. I got a few texts about it in the moment. For me, the ball is not in a position that if Kelce isn't fouled, he has an obvious goal scoring opportunity. I think the ball's a bit far from him, and it's not like directly in front of the goal. It's pretty far to the outside. So I'm okay with it as not a red, except for the fact that this is firmly within the category of, as Jonah would say, you've seen that given.
Yeah. Yeah, to me, in real time, it didn't look like a dog so, and that's just because you rarely see the dog so given when the ball is coming in from wide. And he was coming in from the left-hand side of the box. It feels like the majority of those calls happen on a straight breakaway at the top of the 18. And when you're coming in off an angle, I think that officials are reluctant to say that you're going to score from that spot. And so you don't get it as often. But in a rare ball don't lie moment, the penalty is waved off, no dog so. Luca Orellano steps up to take the free kick and buries it in the back of the net.
And this is another one where it's, he got a helpful deflection.
Yeah.
Off the wall. But I'm not
mad at it.
Not mad at it.
No. No, it's one of those, they set the wall up. Sometimes the wall works to your advantage. That's the risk associated with having the wall, is that when a deflection happens, you have absolutely no idea where that's going. And I've seen that work against us more often than not. I'll happily take one that works for us. I'll happily take a free kick goal. Like you said, they pulled the ball back a little bit because where I thought the foul was committed, he would have had absolutely no chance to get that up and down and onto net. So go Luca. Love that for him. And then not less than 4 minutes later, the very same Luca Orellano scores the goal of the year for FC Cincinnati as far as I'm concerned. It is off a soft foul, a hold-up foul, where they were sort of starting to break into the offensive attack. Montreal commits a foul. The ball is put back into the field of play, and no touch, short run-up. Luca from about, I'd say, a gentleman's 60 to 65 yards away from goal.
So, yeah, I don't know where the distances are coming from, but I saw, the local media assign different distances to it. Laurel says, including a free kick goal from 70 yards out.
That seemed a little far. I thought it was closer to 60.
That seems far, but I would believe it was 60 to 65.
Yeah.
Which, if true, would be the longest free kick goal in MLS history.
Breaks Cucho Hernandez's record, right?
Lucas Alvarez.
Sorry, wrong Columbus Crew player.
But there's two qualifications you could pick your qualification. One, either by a non-goalkeeper, or two, since they started tracking that stat, which was since 2010.
Yeah. Either way,
it's a very very unusual and historic goal for Major League Soccer.
It is. The replay almost doesn't do it justice in terms of what it was like live going in, because it was another one of those where he's done this before. In the previous match against Philly, I want to say, earlier in the year.
It was against Philly.
Against Philly, he takes a similar shot where it was from open play. He was moving and he shoots it. That one was from closer to 47, 46 yards because it was on the attacking half.
It was on the attacking half, yeah.
This one, the ball is basically kicked back into the field of play on a dead ball situation for the free kick to be taken. Basically, as soon as the ball stops rolling, Luca just runs straight towards it and boots it straight downfield. It's another one of those, oh my God, this has a chance. And then the entire place goes nuts. what I want to give credit to, and I pointed this out on Twitter earlier, and it was brought up in our Discord. It was something that I noticed last night when I was watching over the replays. But the comment in the Discord motivated me to go pull the footage on this. The unsung hero of this goal, and it's almost to the point where this feels like this might have been a designed play off the training ground, is Yuya Kubo. Because if you watch the replay on this goal, Luca has the free kick. He takes it from the near side of the field where the ball comes back into play. Right around the midfield line, just a little before midfield, as Luca is stepping up to take the free kick, Kubo bolts at a dead sprint straight downfield, going Route 1 right up the middle. And when you watch it on the replay, he is a decent, I'd say a 50-50 bet to beat the defender. The defender has a step or two on Yuya, but Yuya's at a dead sprint, and this guy's turning around to try and track the run. The camera on the Apple TV, and you could see it in real time when you were watching it at the game, because you can see everything on real time. But when the camera angle flips back to show the replay from behind, you can see that what happens on this free kick is that as Kubo breaks to do the run directly over, the keeper thinks this ball is going to Yuya Kubo. And so what the keeper does is he takes one step forward in order with the idea of, I think my defender might be beaten. I'm going to collect this over the top ball as almost a sweeper keeper type thing. So his first step is forward. And then by the time he realizes that the trajectory of the ball is going long for net, he has to break backwards. He's moving in the wrong direction to pick up Kubo's run, and it's too late. He misses the ball by a solid foot trying to bail out jump. But that run up the middle that distracts the keeper for that one step and has him going the wrong direction is absolutely the reason why Luca's able to make this. And it felt like something they've worked on in practice of, we have the ability, like, look, he probably has two options in that moment. It's either the ball is going to Kubo on the run, or if the keeper steps up to meet Kubo, the ball goes long right there. It was a great, great strike, but it's set up because the run up the middle gets the keeper out of position. It was a fantastic goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, goalies are going to have to start thinking about that.
He's 2 for 3 this year on this move. He missed one in the All-Star game just barely. Are you giving Luca the green light to shoot at any point on the field now?
If he sees an opening, let's go.
Let's take it. Love that. That's up 3-0. This game then at this point becomes, you're just having some fun. Everybody's getting their work in a little bit. In the 71st minute, the 66th minute, Sergio Santos, who's been dubbed by many as the human victory cigar for FC Cincinnati, checks into the match, and within 5 minutes has scored a goal on, frankly, the kind of play that Sergio Santos just didn't make last year, where it's a ball over the top that he gets on the end of. He controls, fantastic. The keeper is in a position to make a play, but Sergio makes a better play and beats the keeper. I love this from Santos. This is what we were promised from Sergio Santos when he was signed to this team, is that he's a guy that can come on, he's got a nose for goal, he's fast, he can use his speed as an asset, and it felt like he just didn't have the confidence in his own touch or in his own ability, and just felt snake bitten on a lot of these. The touch let him down, or the shot let him down. It feels like now he can't miss these when he's getting these opportunities. It's fun to watch.
And I'd give some credit as well to Kevin Kelsey on this. Looking back at the replay, I couldn't tell if he gets a little bit of a flick with his head on the ball. I don't think he does. But what I do think he does is he creates a little bit of space for Santos to run through on the ball and have that clear look at the goal.
It was great. It was fantastic. 4-0 to the FC. The game's a laugher at this point. Montreal pulls one back as the bench is empty. Valenzuela comes into the game for Yuya. Halsey comes into the game for Powell. There's basically a hockey line shift, getting some players out to get them some rest, prevent anyone from picking up any cards. Montreal scores to make it 4-1 in the 81st minute. And then there is a comically large amount of stoppage time in this match. Like, usually I feel like there's this unwritten rule in soccer that if the game is close, you give the full amount of stoppage time. But if a team's trailing by like 3 or 4 goals, there's a gentleman's 4 or 5 put up, and everybody's like, okay, we can just go home here. The fourth official puts up 10 minutes of stoppage time, which I think is accurate for how long the VAR check took, how many substitutions there were, how many stoppages of play there were. But it was funny to watch this because neither team had any interest in playing this match for 10 more minutes. And so what resulted was 10 of the just get us the fuck out of here-ist minutes you will ever see in a soccer game, where there were multiple times where dudes were just standing with the ball and no one coming up to challenge or dispossess them. I think Roman did a Slav squat over the ball for a solid 45 seconds, waiting to pick it up until a defender came to say, okay, I'm going to force you to do this. Am I wrong in suggesting that maybe in these games, both managers should have the opportunity to waive off stoppage time? Like, we're done here. We don't need to see any more of this game.
Yeah, it should be like the high jump.
Yeah.
We'll agree that we're
done here. Yeah. Take a page out of FIFA's playbook. Like, more coaches in the NFL should coach like they're playing Madden, I think. No punting. I think there should be a play out of FIFA's playbook, and there should be the option to just gentlemanly quit the game and concede. Hit a GG with everyone in the chat, and we all move on, because this stoppage time was utterly unnecessary. The only thing it was good for is that half the crowd filed out, so by staying to the end, you actually were able to kind of not have to deal with traffic, because it was a gradual departure from TQL Stadium. The match ends 4-1. There was some suggestion in the group chat afterwards and in the comments afterwards that it's a good game, it's a good win, but how quick we are to apologize for winning, that maybe it doesn't matter as much because Montreal is terrible. We didn't realize how bad they were. This was, in fact, a team that lost to New England Revolution 5-0 in its last outing. Where are you at after this game? What did we learn? Did this mean anything? Or is this just they beat a bad team in a game they needed to win?
I mean, they did beat a bad team in a game they needed to win. We could talk about the goals. I think, winning, Kelsey winning that free kick that set up the Orellano goal, like, that's not a fluky thing, right? Like, that's a reward of playing well.
Yes.
The Kelsey goal, again, it was a reward for playing well, for Luca sending a nice ball into the box, and for Kelsey finding himself in a good spot to receive the ball and take the shot. The Santos goal, perfect surge, good play, good pass from, I think, Awaziem, good movement from the strikers, and Santos made a really nice finish there. And if you want to say the long distance Orellano goal isn't something that you can rely on, fine. But, like,
I mean,
they were thoroughly the better team.
They happen a lot. The long distance Orellano goals happen a lot.
They were thoroughly the better team. They had the most chances. They had the most of the ball. They passed the eye test for me. As far as, did they deserve to win the game last night? And they did it without Lucho. They did it without Yedlin. So I think that all the takeaways from the game have to be positive.
Yeah.
Did they beat Montreal 8-0? Did they
They
score
very well
4 goals?
They very well could have beaten this team.
They could have
8-0. They created enough chances to do it.
Did they score all 4 goals off the results of beautiful play that they just did, like pinpoint passing and dribbled right into the goal? Like, no, but I can't be bothered to really care about that. So In the get like they were 90% accurate passing last night, so I don't think we need to grind our teeth over the result. Does it mean everything is fixed?
No.
Rest of the year? No. It's the same team that it's been. They needed to win this game. They did win the game. They should feel good about what they did. The ability to win MLS Cup still depends on, can you have a consistent lineup? Can your defense be as solid as you expected it to be, or closer to what you expected going into the beginning of the season? And can you get Lucho Acosta healthy?
Yeah.
And so like those issues still exist. They're going to exist for, the next, at least probably through the month of September, if not October. But that doesn't mean that you should be putting an asterisk on the game last night or anything like that in my view.
No. They needed to win to get the vibes back. Just at the very least, that they were on a 4-game losing streak, stretching it to 5 with some of the games they have upcoming would have been bad. Having this international break coming off a loss to a very, we'll say, less than mediocre Montreal team would have been brutal for the fan base. And I think based on some of Noonan's comments, it would not have done well for the players inside this facility. So that's really, really good. This league is so screwy. I don't know that you can ever apologize for a win ever. This very same Montreal team, or close to the same Montreal team, beat FC Cincinnati in their building earlier in the year. Bad teams win games all the time in this league when you don't expect them to. So getting your wins when you can, big. Getting a home win, just because this team's form at home has been so maddeningly inconsistent, also a positive, good thing. Winning without Lucho Acosta on the field, good. Winning without DeAndre Yedlin on the field, good. Good to see a couple of these guys seeing the ball hit the back of the net. Luca had a kind of underwhelming run recently, especially without Lucho Acosta on the field. So him scoring some goals, looking goal dangerous, looking dangerous off free kicks and set pieces, these are all positive things you can take away from this. I think if you want to squint and see negatives and be a negative on this, I think that what we talked about at the start of just that this team without Lucho Acosta just seems like there's the creativity and the sparks come fewer and further between without Lucho on the field, and that long term this team is going to have to answer some questions about what they do when Lucho is either unavailable or what life looks like after he moves on. I think that in the offseason, finding someone who can play attacking mid when Lucho is off the field, I think that needs to be a priority. That needs to be a signing that they're looking at. But for this week, they took care of business. They scored 4 goals. I don't know how you can be upset with that. Other thoughts on this match in general. I thought the pool reporter questions from Carter Chapley are worth talking about as well.
Oh yeah, that was,
which is just like it's a cherry sundae. It's a cherry on top of the shit sundae right here. So for people's edification on this, when in MLS there is one person assigned to be a pool reporter, and that pool reporter is basically the spokesperson for all of the other reporters and working media covering the match. And that individual is allowed to submit questions to the referees. They have to be, Carter outlines his process, which is funny. To clarify the process, the pool reporter does not meet with the officials, but hands written questions on a sheet of paper to a referee liaison who delivers and returns the answers. The officials wrote their answers on that sheet of paper. The follow-up question came after the initial questions were asked, written on the same sheet and returned via the liaison, the pool reporter that then transcribes and distributes the transcription to all of the required parties. So this is the fucking game of telephone that is required to ask questions of the gods who rule the third team in these, that mortals are not allowed to interact with or bring pizza to. I bring this up only because the responses to Carter's questions are comically unprofessional. And I'm going to read them in their entirety. Question 1. What did Miles Robinson do to receive a yellow card? Answer. His foul was reckless. Question 2. How did the infraction rise to the level of a yellow card? Answer. His foul was off the ball. Follow-up question. What about the foul was reckless? Answer. He had no opportunity to play the ball. Come on.
This is
disgraceful.
It is. And this is also how these questions are typically handled by MLS referees. Is they will just regurgitate text from the rule in response to a question. Like, they don't provide anything useful. I've seen reporters complain about the lack of transparency, and I think we were on this a little ahead of them for the most part. And look at how aggressively a lot of league media caped for the officials during the lockout, and they do not care.
They don't.
They're gonna treat you like dirt. It's a little strong, but they're not gonna respect your questions. They're not gonna help make your job easier in any kind of way. And I just hope everybody remembers this.
Yeah,
when they come around to the next time.
That's last part is what's really infuriating to me, is that there were a lot of people that were working media in this league that frustratingly went to bat for the officials union and went to bat for the officials. And now that the officials have an opportunity to return the favor and help the journalists of this league out. And look, as a league, we've talked about this before. This league is desperate for more people to cover this league, more credentialed media, more outlets covering this league. And this is the shit that they give. What did Miles Robinson do to receive a yellow card? His foul was reckless. Well, no shit you thought the foul was reckless. That's the definition of a goddamn yellow card, is a reckless foul. It wasn't for persistent infringement because I think it was his first foul of the fucking game. And this idea that they think this is acceptable and the league thinks this is acceptable. We talked about this when they were doing the CBA negotiations. They should have required in the CBA negotiations that the referees take questions after the game. Be the first league that makes the officials get up there and answer questions from the media. That they have to do this live. The fact that you have to submit written questions on a piece of paper and they handwrite the answers back to you. What is this? I mean, you may as well just text them. This is nonsense.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me, but you would have to do this as part of the CBA negotiations, because I think that the limitation is in the CBA, that it's they only can be required to they can only be required to take one one question and then one follow-up, or one or two questions and one follow-up.
That should have been the first thing that was you want more money? Okay, you're going to have to help us provide content to the media. Otherwise, shut up. You're never coming back. Like that should have been a non-negotiable point of the league, is that if you want to make more money, you've got to make us more money. And what makes us more money is you sitting out here and providing a reason for people to show up with a TV camera to cover this league. You want to be the third team? You want to call yourself the fucking third team? Then act like a team member and go take a press conference like the rest of the teams have to do. The officiating performance was shameful last night. And then on top of that, to have the gall to this be your explanation is a 19 word, as Carter says, 19 words between the three questions that they got back from the officials. That's just, I don't know. We've harped on this a lot. I think people are probably sick of hearing about it, but these people are, it's unserious.
So it says in the CBA, this is the one that was in effect before the current one, so the one that expired last year. It says they may elect to answer media questions either in writing and or orally. An official shall not answer media questions from the poll reporters until such time as she has been given appropriate training by pro, which may constitute distribution of its media policy. The number of questions shall not exceed 3 and 1 follow-up question.
It's like the Monty Python and the Holy Grail. 3 shall be the number, and the number shall be 3.
Media questions prior to the match or during halftime shall not be answered by an official.
Doesn't mean they can't be asked, though.
Right. True.
All right, Carter, Pat, Laurel, if you're listening, there's nothing in the agreement that says you can't ask the questions at halftime, just that they can't answer them. So let's start peppering these people with questions.
So yeah, it's frustrating. Matt Miazga has to go sit in front of cameras and microphones and take questions about things he does during games. I don't think it's unreasonable that the professional referees, who are, for the most part, educated professionals in their daily life. These are people who are like accountants, executives, business consultants, lawyers.
Yeah, they had no problem.
Chris Penso was like a state trooper.
Yeah. He understands how to write a report.
These people know how to take questions.
They certainly know
they're not going to get tricked or outsmarted by Charlie Boehm or whatever.
Like the one dude we read about, he's talking about yucking it up on the sidelines with people. Like if you're going to be, talking to the fans during the game, you can certainly answer a question or two from a reporter. If this is the answer we're going to get from these officials and these pool reports, why not let's ask some off the wall questions. Like if you're not going to give us any real answers on shit, let's find out what your favorite breakfast cereal is. I don't know. Maybe we'll learn something about these people in the process. It certainly would provide more information than we're getting about the actual fucking performance.
Pineapple on a pizza, yes or no?
The Last Jedi, your take. The only other thing I wanted to bring up about this game is that I've been on a personal crusade against XG. I think XG is a voodoo stat, and I think people that believe in XG are basically Wiccans, and that's cool if you are a Wiccan. But yeah. So anyway, Luca Orellano scores 2 goals in this match. Goal number 1 comes off a free kick. We've already talked about it. Has an XG of 0.07. That's a free kick from about 3 yards outside of the box, 4 yards outside of the box. 0.07 XG. According to FOTMob, his goal from about 60 yards on a free kick was an XG of 0.05. Help me make sense of those two numbers.
I refuse.
I appreciate that. Like, you're telling me that his free kick goal was only a 20% better or 30% better chance than shooting the ball from the parking lot? Come on.
I remember reading an article in The Ringer, I think, or 538 maybe, about, it was like early on. It's just like it was like Harry Kane is the luckiest player in the world, and he's not gonna keep scoring because he's he's outpacing his XG by too much, and you can find that type of thing about other great players, and it's just he just kept doing it.
Yeah,
like it's I think that a lot of these, there's a lot of things that these stats don't capture. They're interesting and can be useful, I'm sure, in various evaluations, but I don't come because Montreal won the XG on FOTMOB.
Yeah, 1.03 to 1.06.
And it's like, what are you going to believe? Like me or your lion eyes?
Right. Yeah, I'm done with XG. Like, if you want to talk about XG with me, you gotta come with some explanations as to how a half court shot has a higher XG or has basically the same XG as a free kick at the top of the box. Like, it's only barely higher than Sergio Santos's XG of 0.13.
I'm also gonna be done talking about it until the next time it
proves my point.
It's useful to apologize for like a poor performance.
Right. Anything else about this game, Grayson? Good win. Back on the smiling side of the scoreboard, as George Grand used to say.
Yep. Let's
all right. Then let's kick it over to part 2. In part 2, you know what? We haven't figured that out yet. But here, listen to this ad, and we'll surprise you with some content on the other side.
This episode is also brought to you by Cincy Shirts. Look, you know Cincy Shirts. You love Cincy Shirts. They've been with FCC from the beginning, and we here at the Postcast, we're just huge fans of their work. They were very early sponsors of the Postcast here, and we have always enjoyed their work. If you head on over to cincyshirts.com, that's Cincy with a Y, shirts.com, and check out using the promo code ThePostCincy, all one word, all caps, you will get 10% off your order, and you let them know that we sent you. Like, they have MLS and MLSPA licensed FCC gear available online and at their 2 retail locations in Hyde Park and Fort Mitchell. If they don't have your size on the shelf, they can print you one on the spot. That is a fantastic feature and something that I have used as well. So again, special thank you to Cincy Shirts. Head on over to their website or check the link down below in the description for the promo code ThePostCincy for 10% off your next order. And a huge thank you to Cincy Shirts.
Oh, and we're back. Grayson, I can't believe I forgot about this. We have an international break coming up, so all of these suspensions will be applied to the next match, which comes not next weekend, but in 2 weeks against the Columbus Crew. We'll have plenty of time for existential dread about that in upcoming episodes, but we have actual international news with the U.S. men's national team announcing its roster for this upcoming international window. There are some interesting omissions on this whole thing. Missing from the international roster, 2 players close, near, and dear to the hearts of FC Cincinnati fans. Miles Robinson, not on this international roster. Also not on this international roster, Weston McKennie has been left off. I'll go through it real quickly here. Your goalkeepers are Ethan Horvath, Diego Cachin, Patrick Schulte, Matt Turner, Marlon Fossey, Christopher Luno, Mark McKenzie, Tim Ream, Chris Richards, Joe Scally, Austin Trusty, and Caleb Wiley are your defenders. Midfielders Brendan Aronson, Johnny Carduso, Luca De La Torre, Aiden Morris, Yunus Musa, Gio Reyna, and Malik Tillman are your midfielders. Florian Balogun, Ricardo Pepe, Pulisic, Sargent, and Haji Wright are your forwards. Any surprises on that? Are you surprised at the non-inclusion of Weston McKennie or Miles Robinson?
I think that I would have to be much more invested in this roster to be surprised, because I would have to have, more, I don't know, detailed thoughts about what I was expecting. I was just a little surprised how late the roster came.
Right? Like I was kind of my wife was asking me about this because the national team is playing here at TQL on like the 10th,
Yep.
right?
On the 10th,
and I mentioned that, and she said, "Oh, is Miles playing?" And I said to her, "Well, I actually don't know because I don't think I'd seen a roster." At that point, I hadn't seen a roster earlier today.
It does feel like a funny bit to call Miles for 2 months, not play him with the senior team at all, and force him to miss like 7 games. And then when there's an actual international break and he'd be playing in his home stadium, you leave him off the roster. It just feels like it feels like a kind of a funny prank.
It did make me wonder, and I want your take on this because I had this thought.
Yeah.
Do you think that so the last time this team played at TQL Stadium, there were incredibly loud "We want Brandon" chants for Brandon Vasquez, who had been called up to that game. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's any chance that that rubbed people at U.S. Soccer the wrong way? That there was an FC Cincinnati heavy crowd that was, instead of cheering for everyone, was just demanding to see their favorite player inserted into the match?
Yeah, probably could. I could see that being a type of thing that would bother U.S. Soccer, even though it shouldn't.
No,
because it's people enjoying themselves at your match and rooting for, a player on your team. Yeah. Like it's the type of thing that I do think that folks involved with U.S. Soccer, and by U.S. Soccer I mean not restricted to the organization, but U.S. Soccer writ large, seems the type of thing that would get somebody hot and bothered.
Yeah.
But I mean, another reason though that I can't feel very worked up about the roster is the other thing missing from it is a coach.
Yeah, I just before you start that, this was a tweet that got sent out on that topic.
So
the U.S. men's national team Twitter, with the search for a new head coach continuing, Mikey Veras will serve as the interim head coach.
He's also going to be the San Diego FC head coach.
Cool, fuck him.
Next year.
Yeah. We hate him already. I thought Mauricio Pochettino was a done deal here, yet they say the search is ongoing. What in God's name is taking this so long?
So I think the hang-up is Chelsea owes him money. And if he takes another job, they get out of it.
Okay.
So what I've seen reported is that there's ongoing negotiations between him and Chelsea about what they're going to pay him under the contract that they had, and that he can't officially be taking the U.S. job until that's done.
You know what's wild about that, though, is that the longer that this goes on without him getting a contract, it always raises the possibility that some team is going to launch a manager after a disappointing start to the season over in Europe. You could absolutely see Pochettino being a panic hire for some team in one of the big leagues in Europe who gets off to a slow start and decides, you know what, we need to bring somebody in. And then you're really holding the bag at U.S. Soccer and going back to the drawing board on stuff. Would be the funniest possible outcome to this scenario, but
it would.
It would make all the right people unhappy, which would also, I'm not saying I root against my country, but in this particular instance, it is what it is. So if you bought tickets to this international friendly, number one, how dare you? Number two, sorry that you will not be able to see Miles Robinson. I still think you should chant his name anyway if you're at this match. Not out of wanting to see him play, but that we want him called up to the national team because that's fun. And how dare you not call him up when we can actually watch him play? I would also be chanting for Lucho Acosta. We want Lucho, as in somebody please fast track this man's citizenship to the United States of America so that we can start having that conversation. That will also make all of the right people online very, very upset with what's going on. Grayson,
I do need an update on the citizenship.
Yeah, it's gotten really quiet on that, hasn't it? Like, it seemed like that was in progress, and people just haven't been.
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe we'll get one of our. Can we get a pool reporter to ask that question as well?
Yeah. Does the U.S. Customs and Immigration Service allow written follow-up questions?
Famously, a government organization dedicated to transparency. This is Labor Day, Grayson. We're gonna.
Could you FOIA his immigration file?
I don't think you can FOIA if
I don't think
it's
you can.
active. I think you can do it once it's done, but they would have. I would assume it would be heavily redacted. For this Labor Day, Grayson, let's leave the people with little in the 11, out of the 18. We'll start with you. What do you want to put in your 11 on this long weekend, and why is it labor unions?
Yeah, I'll put labor unions
Except
in the 11, except for the PSRA.
Yes. All other labor unions. We're a pro-union podcast, except for officials. Officials do not need labor unions. Officials shouldn't have labor unions.
I think labor unions are nice. It's why we know what MLS players get paid. It's also what allows teams to have salary caps and things that we like. But yeah, I think
people forget that if it wasn't for collective bargaining and labor unions, it would be illegal to have competitive balance and parity in professional sports. Those are all bargained for things. A salary cap in any other context would be a gross violation of any number of labor laws and labor protections. So if you enjoy the fact...
If Kroger and Walmart made an agreement with each other about how much they would pay their cashiers,
problem.
That could be a crime.
Yes. This was a big thing a couple years ago, that all of the tech companies had secret agreements that they wouldn't poach each other's staff. So I think Apple, Google, and Microsoft all had to pay a very large sum of money because they had an agreement that if you were working for one of those companies, they wouldn't make offers to your employees, which famously not great for employees trying to make more money and get new job offers for themselves. Left to their own devices, most corporations are grossly indifferent to your well-being and your financial health. So, yeah, go unions. Go Labor Day. Labor Day. The other thing that I love about Labor Day that's related to this is that you'll always see some people that decide they want to make Labor Day about the troops. We love the troops. Big supporter of the troops. Labor Day is the holiday for the working man. Yeah, this is the one holiday where we don't have to get all rah-rah American pride. We can celebrate the fact that if you show up and work a 9 to 5 in this country, or you work any amount of time in this country, that this is for you. You're the people that built this country, that built the economy. You're the thing that keeps the engine running. And we get to talk about you for a change. So pat yourself on the back and take a well-deserved vacation as to what's going on right here, because, yeah, it's good. Good one. In my 11 this week is college football. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the show. I love college football. It's terrible for my gambling. I was not informed, however, that there are some rule changes to college football, and I was watching and sweating out a bet this weekend. No one told me that there's a 2-minute warning in the sport now. College football does not need more stoppages at the end of games. It takes forever for the last 5 minutes of a college game to be played with the clock stopping to move the chains and everything. They don't need a 2-minute warning in college. I was beside myself watching a team get a free timeout as I needed them to stay out of the end zone to cover. I love college football. I love the sport of college. I love the sport of college football. I love the games. I was full sicko mode chasing a Hawaii bet yesterday that UCLA came out and won in one of the strangest endings to a game I've seen in recent memory, including a guy who kicks for Hawaii that apparently learned how to place kick while watching YouTube videos, which, sure, I guess you can truly learn anything online now. But I don't understand people who aren't into college football. It's basically chaos on television, and you can get up in the morning starting at 11, and you can watch sports from 11 a.m. till damn near 2 a.m, and there's always a football game on. There's always something to bet. It's great. The takes are great. The fan bases are great. People lose their minds and melt down over results. I'm sure they've already put the head coach of Texas A&M's house on the market after losing to Notre Dame the way they did last night. I love it to death. The only part of college football that I don't love this year is that there is, I should say, an inordinate number of players who are sons of people that I watched a ton of in college or in the pros back in the day. Somebody posted a list online yesterday, and it was just sort of like, do you feel old? Because the number of players who have now kids that are in college is just absurd. Here, I found it right here. So, currently starting in college football, or not starting, but currently playing in college football right now. You ready for this? I'll take your silence as a yes. The son of Adam Vinatieri, AJ Vinatieri, Brian Urlacher's son, Kennedy Urlacher, Willis McGahee's son, Willis McGahee IV, Kurt Warner's son, EJ Warner, Chad Pennington's son, Cole Pennington, is the starting quarterback for Marshall. Emmett Smith's son, EJ Smith, is a running back for Texas A&M. Edgerrin James's son, Eden James, is a running back. Henry Hasselbeck, Matt Hasselbeck's kid, is a quarterback at UCLA. Josh McCown has 2 kids playing. One's the starting quarterback at, I think, Texas San Antonio. Antonio Gates' son, Antonio Gates Jr., is a wide receiver with Michigan State. I feel old as dirt seeing some of these guys have kids playing college football. And I don't know how to deal with that.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. All right. What are you putting out of your 18 this week?
Out of my 18 is so I read this article in the New York Times Magazine this morning about this. So the title is "The For-Profit City That Might Come Crashing Down," which is great. So it's these guys. I don't know if they're like tech affiliated. They're certainly like funded by tech people. They've started a city on Roatan off the coast. It's an island off the coast of Honduras that they got. So Honduras had a coup in 2009. The coup government or whatever passed a law that was basically created the possibility of economic opportunity zones or something where you could essentially get exempted from a whole host of laws and do your own thing. So these guys went down to Honduras and set this thing up. The funders are a lot of big names, or at least people who have been said to have helped fund it had some big names, but it doesn't seem like any of those folks actually live there. But
it's always a great way to start.
One of the big things that they're doing is so I read this little segment. Prospera has become particularly well known for the zone's experimental medical facilities, which run clinical trials unburdened by FDA standards. The week of my visit, Patry Friedman, grandson of the economist Milton Friedman and the founder of a startup cities fund that invested in Prospera, had a chip with his Tesla key implanted into his hand. On a previous trip, he brushed his teeth with genetically modified bacteria purported to prevent cavities. Another time, he was injected with a protein booster intended to make him stronger and faster, as he put it at a conference in Roatan that week.
What?
I do
this
think
is
if
Bioshock,
you get injected with some, I do think that he needs to go run some sprints. I need to see. How are you? How's that going for you? Are you stronger and faster?
I'd love that. This country should have this independent city state should have its own Olympic team. We can really find the answer to this.
There's a list at somewhere of some of the medical, it's all Bitcoin kind of funded.
Of course it is.
The writer said that the coffee shop made an exception for him, a one-time exception for him to pay with cash for his coffee instead of Bitcoin. So one of the companies, it's called Symbiont Labs, manufactures implants that turn people into, quote, self-sovereign cyborgs, unquote.
What?
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means. They think
I don't want to find out what that means.
They're cyborgs that don't appreciate when there's fringe on the flag when they go to court. Like,
I have no idea. So anyway, I think this is it was kind of a fun read of just what's going on down there. Oh, this is maybe my favorite part of the book. Okay. Of the article. So the writer meets this educator, this employee and resident down there, next to a bookshelf stocked with Ludwig von Mises' Bureaucracy, Ayn Rand's Capitalism, and Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life.
Yeah.
That's the 3 books. Those are the 3 books. Those are the only 3 books. Like it's just very funny to me.
What else do you really need to have in your bookcase if you've got those 3 right there? You know what? I take it back. I don't want to go to the time machine. I want to go to this place for my trip that's being planned for me. That's where I want to go.
Right.
I want to experience what it's like when you're being just injected with pure protein. I assume
you want to open your Tesla with your hand.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, having a phone is really annoying. My Tesla, if I can just wave my hand to open my Tesla, then that's living in the future right there. I think that's how it worked in Demolition Man too, which, truly an underrated film of the late 90s.
If you watch the movie Upgrade, high recommend, by the way.
Okay.
I guess that would be an example of a non-self-sovereign cyborg, but I don't want to go into any more spoilers from there.
Let's see here. I'll get us out of here with out of my 18 are shitty movies. It feels like there hasn't been any good movies released this summer for the most part. It's been kind of trash. The movie The Borderlands, epic Hollywood bomb, is already being sent to video on demand less than a month after it was released. It set a record for the worst opening, I believe, for a major motion picture in quite some time, only to be broken by a remake no one asked for of The Crow, which apparently came out later this year and is already set to streaming because it's been so bad and nobody went to go see it. They wonder why movie theaters are failing, and the answer is they keep producing shitty movies like this. I don't understand who was asking for a reboot of The Crow. The original one was barely a good movie. It just had like sort of a mythos because the one dude died, I think, while they were making it. So, yeah. So
the director of The Crow, the director of the original, must have like bad blood with the studio because he's been very openly and publicly shitting on the movie on social media under his own name for months.
Well, he was not wrong about this because it seemed improbable that a worse movie would come out than Borderlands, which looked like basically you hired an AI chatbot to rewrite Guardians of the Galaxy, except make it way less funny. And they managed to do it. So if you're looking for something to do this weekend, I do not recommend going to see The Crow. And for the love of God, someone please come up with some original ideas for movies.
I enjoyed Thelma.
Oh, okay. There.
It just came out. I think it's available on streaming now. I don't remember when it came out in theaters.
Right. Or there's always Rebel Moon, which we will review part 2 at some point. Maybe during this international window. Grayson, anything else for the people before we get out of here so you can go watch fireworks?
No, let's go.
Go fuck yourself, San Diego.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Cincy Postcast, which is a production of The Post Cincy. You can check us out at thepostcincy.com for all of our written content as well as links to our social media. You can follow us on Twitter, and as well you can join us on our Discord server. You can find links to that server both in this episode description as well as on our website. That is where most of our conversations are going on. We have a lovely community there talking about FC Cincinnati, MLS, anything and everything else and everything in between. We also want to give a huge thanks to Jim Trace and the Makers for providing all of the music you've heard throughout this episode. They're an amazing local Cincinnati band. Again, more information about them is in the description of this episode. And if you enjoyed what you listened to, and you've made it to the end, so I'm going to assume you liked it, or you just can't reach your stop button, please like us, review us, subscribe to us wherever you are getting your podcasts. That is going to be really, really helpful. But more importantly, share this with a friend. A personal recommendation helps spread a podcast so much further. So please share this if you know somebody in your life who's an FC Cincinnati fan, an MLS fan, somebody that you think would enjoy this. Pass it on over. Thank you so much again for listening. It blows me away that people continue to listen to us, and thank you so much again.